looking for the negatives. My partner has been saying that I seem to not be happy, which I don't think that I'm necessarily not happy. I just think we're under a lot of stress with 2 children under the age of 2.5 and trying to keep up with work and everything else. And so, sure, I'm not like cheerful because I have oftentimes a lot of energy and a lot on my mind and a lot I'm trying to accomplish with much less freedom and time than I used to. So it's a challenge. But I had an interaction with my son where I just noticed that I was not looking at the good parts of him. I was looking at the negative points. I was just pulling out the negative points. And it was disheartening because like, what did he do to deserve my fixation on his negative qualities? It just feels a little unfair. And I have this idea that you focus on the negatives for human development, for progression. But this was just not even that. This was just pulling out the negatives instead of seeing the good things. And it is as simple as just like looking out for the good things and just noticing it. But like all things, it starts off being simple, or it's simple in concept, but it's difficult in habit, because the habits that we've built are like, I always come back to the river cutters. Did you ever do this 4th grade science for us? 4th grade science, where you get like a piece of sand or like a tub with sand, and then there's this little kind of bar of water or something that goes up across the top and drips, and it's supposed to show you how erosion occurs over time. And I always come back to that idea whenever I think about thought patterns, because I think of thought patterns in the same way. A thought pattern, the more you have that particular thought, the deeper that groove is going to be. I think from a neuroplastic perspective, the research is definitely trending in that direction of being able to prove that physiologically as well. So I always think about the river cutters and like I'm grooving these pathways, these patterns, these mental thought patterns. And I just noticed an ugly one of mine today. So, you know, like I said, acknowledging it, finding it is the first thing, being aware of it. It's easy to change it in the moment, but also to counteract like the years of all of this dripping onto this thought pattern, this deep groove in my head. That's the difficult part, is how do you feed a different channel, a different thought pattern? Well, you put 1 drop over there. And then people are always like, oh my gosh, like it's so hard. It's like, yeah, because you've put 50 million drops in this particular area, and then you put 1 drop there. Yes, it's going back there shortly thereafter. You have to put 50 million drops in that other area before you're going to even tip the scales, until you're headed that direction. So change is super hard. I think that's the some of the beauty of being a human being, which is the observational experience of change. And what I mean by that is, like, if change were really simple, if you were to be like, oh, I shouldn't have that negative thought pattern anymore, I should have this positive one. And if it were really easy to make that transition, there would be very little reward to being a human being. It would be far too easy for it to be worthwhile, I think. I think humans are at a particular conscious level of awareness. The Buddhists say that being a human being is one of the best forms in which you can be born in. If you think of I believe, the wheel of life, I think there are like 6 or 7, I don't know, I can't remember. There's multi-realms from, hell to hungry ghosts to animals to human beings to demigods to gods to enlightenment. There are these sort of levels of conscious maturity, if you will. And in every turn of the conscious cycle of the wheel, you can be put into one of those realms. And people want to be born as a human because humans have a lot of latitude to influence where they're going to end up next, which I think is a fascinating idea to articulate the great opportunity and the great challenge that that opportunity affords. So if you have that much willpower, if you have that much influence over your next turn of your consciousness, if you believe sort of a transmutation of consciousness, if you will, occurs at death. If you don't, that's fine too. It still provides a potential roadmap for life of how you would behave in a way that might be more fulfilling. I don't know. And so I like this idea of human beings have a high degree of control, have influence over where they're headed next. But in order to have that, this change would have to be very, very difficult, right? Because otherwise, if you're easily able to like snap out of things, we'd be in sort of, I would say, like higher ascendant realms of, conscious awareness. So it's difficult, especially when you hear, I think, the difficulties that everyone else is experiencing in life. Israel, Palestine is happening right now. There's tragedies all over the world, really. It's easy to want to compare yourself to this struggle of another human being. And it's natural too, as well. And there are plenty of people who seem like they have everything figured out on the surface that are struggling deeply. So I always try not to think of try not to feel ashamed about the fact that I experience struggle despite my relative privilege or position in the world, if you will, my gifts that I've been afforded. Obviously, I've worked for many of those things in my life, and I have a good family that instilled a lot in me. So I try not to feel guilty about the sadness that I experience, or think that I shouldn't because someone else might have it much worse, or even think that what I have is far worse than somebody else, so I have license to feel bad and nobody else does. Like, those are guaranteed traps to not ever improve your internal approach to life. And I certainly don't have the answers, but if you want to keep listening, let me know. Like and subscribe.